Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Coach Linda, and this is 100 Days of Purpose. I am coming to you with day number 96, and we're going to talk about what is imposter syndrome. Um, Imposter syndrome is something that has been around for a little bit. It's a buzzword that you'll hear a lot of coaches talk about, especially coaches that help with the individuals who are trying to achieve a particular goal. They're trying to better themselves and get some type of attention. I shouldn't say attention, but they're trying to accomplish certain things. And in doing so, they feel that um they feel like they're out of place. They feel like they don't belong. So let's just really get into this. Imposter syndrome refers to an internal experience of believing that you are not as competent as others perceive you to be. While this definition is usually narrowly applied to intelligence and achievement, it has links to perfectionism and social context also. Um, to put it simply, I guess, to kind of put it plain, imposter syndrome is the experience of feeling like a phony. You feel as though at any moment you are going to be found out as a fraud, like you don't belong where you are, and you only got there because of dumb luck, somebody's failure to accomplish something else, or you just feel like you lucked in. It really wasn't something that you earned. It can affect anyone, no matter their social status, their work background, their skill level, or degrees of expertise. And the term came about, and it was first used by psychologist Suzanne. I believe her last name was Imes. And then there was a Pauline Rose Clance. And they used it in the 70s the concept was, when the concept of imposter syndrome was introduced. It was originally thought to apply mostly to high achieving women. So, not saying men don't struggle with it. They're just saying that highly achieving women would have this. And I can understand, because even in the society that we live in right now, um, a woman achieving any type of leadership, CEO, owning her own business, being a pastor, um, being a well-known evangelist, prophetess, anyone that is perceived to have some type of influence in a particular field where men dominate, I can see why that woman would feel like an imposter and even be made to feel like an imposter. But like I said, it's not just women. Since it was introduced in the 70s, it has been recognized as more widely experienced by men and women. So some characteristics of imposter syndrome, so you can know what it feels like, because maybe you have experienced it, but you categorized it a different way, or you characterized it a different way. The symptoms are self-doubt, an inability to realistically assess your competence and skill, attributing your success to external factors, berating your performance, fear that you won't live up to expectations, overachieving, sabotaging your own success, and setting very challenging goals and feeling disappointed when you don't achieve them. While for some people, imposter syndrome can fuel feelings of motivation to achieve, this usually comes at a cost in the form of constant anxiety. You might, um, what's the word I'm looking for? You might over prepare or work much harder than necessary to make sure that nobody finds you out as a fraud. And this puts you in a vicious circle, right? Or a vicious cycle because you think that the only reason you survived is because of something outside of you, not something within you, or not your ability to survive. And so you'll say, oh well, you know, it was because of this, that, and the other. Nothing from within you, none of your knowledge, none of your wisdom, none of your skills. Even though you recognize that you did it, you always want to give the spotlight to someone else or something else. And the problem with imposter syndrome is that the experience of doing well at something does nothing to change your beliefs. Even though you might sail through a performance or get a promotion or have lunch with a coworker that, you know, um a coworker, meaning like a boss or someone, you know, higher level than you. They've asked you to come out and they want to run something by you, and you just feel unworthy of that. Um, and you'll say things to yourself like, what gives me the right to be here? What gives me the right to own this? What gives me the right to have this? Who do I think that I am? And even though you may not ask these particular questions, think about the last time you accomplished something. What did you say about yourself that berated or belittled your accomplishment? And with imposter syndrome, the more you accomplish, the more you just feel like you are a fraud. It is though you can't internalize your experiences or successes. And this makes sense in terms of social anxiety. If you received early feedback that you were not good at, at doing something, early childhood, you were told you would never amount to anything, you're good for nothing. You're just like one of your parents that probably wasn't a good role model. um, you'll start to internalize those, and your core beliefs about yourself are so strong that they don't change even when the evidence is to the contrary. The thought process is, with imposter syndrome, if you do well, it must be the result of luck, because a socially incompetent person like yourself could not and should not belong in that type of arena. And here's something that you should think about. Eventually, these feelings worsen anxiety and may lead to depression. People who experience imposter syndrome also tend not to talk about how they are feeling with anyone and struggle in silence. And this is the same with people with social disorder, social anxiety disorder. They suffer in silence. They don't talk about it. While imposter syndrome is not a recognized disorder in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, it is not uncommon. It is estimated that 70% of people will experience at least one episode of this phenomenon in their lives. So even the most common, the most accomplished individuals at some point will feel like an imposter. So here are some things to help you identify if this is something that you're struggling with. If you think you might have imposter syndrome, ask yourself the following questions. Do you agonize over even the smallest mistakes or flaws in your work? Do you attribute your success to luck or outside factors? Are you very sensitive to even constructive criticism? Do you feel like you will inevitably be found out as a phony? Do you downplay your own expertise even in areas where you are genuinely more skilled than others? I'm going to go over those again. So let me go back up here in my notes, and I'm going to talk about how it manifests again, and then I'm going to read how you can identify it so you guys can have those back to back in case you're taking notes. So some of the common signs of imposter syndrome include self-doubt, an inability to realistically assess your competence and skills, attributing your success to external factors, berating your performance, fear that you won't live up to expectations, overachieving, sabotaging your own success, and setting very challenging goals and feeling disappointed when you fall short. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 there. Number 1, self-doubt. Number 2, an inability to realistically assess your competence and skills. Number 3, attributing your success to external factors. Number 4, berating your performance. Number 5, fear that you won't live up to expectations. 6, you overachieve. 7, you sabotage your own success. And 8, setting very challenging goals and feeling disappointed when you fail. That's how it shows up. So when you see these things happening in your life, you can attribute it to imposter syndrome. And here's how you identify, which is kind of going to go hand in hand with the list I just read. So number 1, do you agonize? This is the questions that you ask yourself. Do you agonize over even the smallest mistakes or flaws in your work? Number 2, do you attribute your success to luck or outside factors? Number 3, are you very sensitive to even constructive criticism? So we're not talking about the haters hating. We're talking about people that love you and care about you and giving you real criticism that should help you and build you up, but you're very sensitive to it. Do you feel like you will eventually, undeniably, inevitably be found out as a phony? So number 1, do you agonize over even the smallest mistakes or flaws in your work? Number 2, do you attribute your success or to luck or outside factors? Number 3, Are you very sensitive to even constructive criticism? Number four, do you feel like you will eventually, inevitably, undoubtedly be found out as a phony? And number that was four, right? One, two, three, four. Number five, do you downplay your own expertise, even in areas where you are genuinely more skilled than others? Those are the questions that you need to ask yourself. And if you find that you are feeling like a fraud, and this is a constant feeling, you feel this way often, it may be helpful to talk to a therapist. The negative thinking, the self doubt, the self sabotage that often characterizes imposter syndrome can have an effect on many areas of your life. So you want to deal with that. You want to, yes, you can hire a coach. And if it's a high level syndrome, meaning that if it's something that you're dealing with and it's not often there, right? It's not constantly there. You're not always feeling like this. Because if you're always feeling like that, it's a deeper issue and you need to see a therapist. You need to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, someone that can really help you deal with the root of the matter. It's more than just praying about it, and sometimes you have to go and talk about it. You have to talk to someone. There are Christian therapists out there. There are Christian counselors and people that have studied this and studied the mind and studied the brain and can really truly help you and guide you. And that's what you want. Now, if it's something that you're just dealing with and it's, not an everyday occurrence, it's not a constant thing, then you can go to a coach, and a coach can definitely unlock some things for you and get you thinking differently, changing your mindset. But when it's a deeper emotional, mental, physical, spiritual thing, you need to get a little bit more help, okay? And there's nothing wrong with getting help. And when you are trying to be a person of purpose, imposter syndrome, we deal with that. Am I doing the right thing? Am I saying the right thing? Especially if we find out we haven't been living in a purpose, we haven't been living our purpose, and now we're making a switch. Um and people will say things like, who do you think you are? Why are you doing this? Why now? You always doing something. And they say stuff about me, and I have to constantly be in my mirror, constantly be in my journal, constantly tell myself that these things that I've acquired, these things that I've accomplished, these things that I know, you know it's one thing that I'm going to school and getting the education, and it's another thing that these are just things that are on the inside of me and they're innately mine, and I own them, if you will. um Understanding that and knowing that even though I've made mistakes in the past, even though I've made bad judgment calls, even though I'm a woman, even though I'm a Black woman, even though I may not be as old or as young as I would, want to be, and doing stuff like this. I haven't been doing it for very long, and all of these things play in your head. You still have to recognize and understand that even though you've gone through the things you've gone through and you've made mistakes, those things don't define you. What defines you is what you do when you learn the lesson. Okay? So your past does not define your future. Your past doesn't even define your present. But if you allow it to affect it, then it will affect it and you will always fall short. And so you got to deal with that imposter syndrome. You got to deal with it at whatever level it shows up, because I just read that 70% of the people struggle with this. Tomorrow we'll talk about the causes of imposter syndrome, and we will get into the different types of imposter syndrome. And then we'll talk a little bit about how you can um, manage manage it and how you can cope with it. Um, and I just want you guys to know that this is Linda being Coach Linda. This is Linda helping and looking at what's going on in the world. And even in this pandemic that we are in, people have made changes. They've lost their jobs, they've lost their loved ones. There's just been a lot of things going on, and because of those things that have been going on, people have had to change careers, they've had to change jobs, they've had to change, the way they do things. People had to learn stuff because maybe the breadwinner of the family is now gone, and so now someone who never had to work has to work. And it's just a lot of changing, and imposter syndrome can kick in because you are worried about the future, you're worried about the uncertainty, and you feel like you're less than, you feel like you are not the right one, you feel that you can't take the helm and do what's necessary, or you can do it, but you just feel like because you haven't done it, because people haven't seen that side of you, because people don't know that side of you, that who are you to take the leadership? Who are you to take the front row? Who are you to stand in the foreground and not the background? And so we're going to deal with that for these 2 days. We're going to deal with the imposter syndrome, and hopefully you will come out of it understanding the imposter syndrome and understanding how to deal with it and how to get through it and how to manage it and how not to allow it to sabotage the success that is rightfully yours. We're not talking about being prideful. We're not talking about being conceited. That's not what we're saying here. What we're saying is that if you achieve something, you should enjoy your achievement, and you shouldn't be made to feel less than by yourself or anyone else. So this is Coach Linda. This is 100 Days of Purpose, and we are on day number 96. Yesterday was actually 96, but for some reason I was busy doing stuff and forgot to come on, and I kept telling myself to come on, and it just never really occurred. And when I woke up this morning, I was like, oh crap, I didn't go on. So we're picking up where we left off. This is 96, tomorrow is 97, and we're rounding the corner, and we're getting to the last final days of this 100 days of purpose. And I'm praying and hoping and wishing that it is helping you, it is causing you to seek your purpose, it's causing you to walk in your purpose, it's causing you to understand a little bit more about yourself, so that you can shine bright in the world, so you can let your light so shine. Remember, only those that can see the invisible can achieve the impossible. And I double dog dare you to be exactly who you were created, made, and placed on earth to be. You be blessed, be encouraged. Until next time, this is Coach Linda, and I am out.